Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday, December the 13th. I'm trying to get long here. I'm going to show you how, I want to show you how a lot of times I'll turn around and buy these lows here. There seems to be people have a lot of concern about how to buy the lows or how to sell the highs on the trading range. And a lot of times you just do it like I'm trying to do it right here. You just do it blindly. I'm just going to have faith. This is the overnight low. Look how far away we are from the EMA. Look how long it's been since we've had any kind of correction. I know there's a lot of orders, buy orders in here, so I want to try to buy with them. And I like this setup so much that I'm going to go in with 10 contracts if I can get it filled here. I don't know if this is going to get filled. Let's see if we can't get it filled. Here we go. There we go. All right, we're filled. And, all we're looking for out of the gate is 4 ticks. And then I'll have my runners. And actually what I want to do is scalp out, 8 of these and save 2 for runners, because there's a good chance we got to come back and test this breakout area right here. We're going to probably at least come back to the EMA. There's a lot of reasons to like this trade right here. But I get more questions on this than anything. People just are, it petrifies people to buy here. What they want to do is sell down here. They see all this movement down and they want to be selling down here. And I want to be buying down here, because this is where people are going to start. They've gotten short all the way down. When this thing starts bouncing, this is where they're going to take their profits. And that's going to add to the momentum of taking it higher. And now we've got a double bottom in place. But these overnight lows and overnight highs are important. They're almost always good for at least a scalp. And on a range day, they're probably going to reverse. And if this turns out to be a range day, I've got a good chance of catching the very low here. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. But the main thing is I want you to understand why I wanted to go long here, because there is almost always going to be a bounce, and you can see that bounce happening right now. Now, do I know how far this bounce is going to go? No. And we may stall right here and turn down and go down. If they do, I'll have to exit this trade. But it works so often that you can't argue with it. You got to consider taking the trade. And you can see all the buying. Watch these. They're buying it up fast. As far as you can see the ticks, and they're all to the high side of that bar. So this is a lot of buying going on right here. But that obviously means there's a lot of people selling too. But I guarantee you the smart traders, more than likely the smart traders are all buying down here. All right, there we go. We're bumping off our exit order. There we go. We're out. My stop moves to break even. So I just scalped out 8 ticks right there. Or, I'm sorry, 8 contracts right there. That's 8 points I just made in 3 minutes. That's how long this video's been going. So now I've got a runner up here, and this right here is our this was the close from yesterday. That's why I have that line across there. This is the overnight low, this is the overnight high, and this blue lines are the ones I move around that mark my highs and lows and so forth. So let's see what this thing does. But you see how quick and easy that was. And, and all I did was buy it blindly. Now, one thing I want to clarify is don't go out tomorrow and try to start buying lows like that blindly and buying highs or selling highs like that blindly. Make sure you sim trade it, you play with it, because you can get it wrong and this thing can keep just going straight through there. But there's a lot of reasons I like that. Look at that move down. We were way, way overdue for a pullback. We haven't come back to the EMA in forever. And we didn't come back and test this breakout area right across here. So that's where we're more than likely headed, and then we'll probably come down and test this low again. So I think what I'm going to do is try to get out of this right in front of the EMA unless something changes. And that's a pretty bullish bar right there. But you see, we're probably going to end up with some overlap. But if we continue to go higher there, I may change this. But we'll try to get 23.75. Let's try to get 3 points out of that runner. That'll get us back to the EMA. See if we can do that. Because, see, we didn't really test that little area right there. And that's, and you know, but really, just so you understand, what the market does is it's constantly probing support and resistance. And even if that support and resistance doesn't hold, there's almost always a bounce. Now, you can't trade off just that alone, but that's something you have to understand. Look what happens. Look, these were lows yesterday afternoon. And we got through there in the overnight. But look, once you started getting into the normal trading kind of hours here, right, and after the 8:30 open, look what happens. We come back and we test it, and we bounce. We test it, we bounce. We test it, we bounce. And then it holds that long, then it goes higher, and it starts testing the highs. It tests this one. You know, you get a pushback, it goes up, and it keeps testing. It finally tests this high, and it fails, and it turns down. And so now we're just heading down. We went right through that this time. So, you know, I would have expected it to bounce right there. And if you'd have bought that blindly, but that's not the important low. The important one is the overnight one. And usually, I mean, a lot of times that will be your next low of the day, that double bottom area right in there, and you'll work higher. But this looks like a range day unless we break lower and go lower. Until we do that, this is a range day. I'm looking at a range day unless we break lower here and continue to trend down. And then if that happens, then I'll switch and I'll consider we're in a downtrend. But for now, I'm looking at a range day. Notice how flat the EMA is across here. You know, it looked like it was about to turn into an uptrend, and guess what? It turned straight down. And so until this right here is a downtrend, you can see that. And, you know, here it looks like an uptrend, and you can see prices were really trading up. But look at there's two. This is something else I'll show you while we're waiting on this trade here. There's your first leg up. Then you got a two-legged correction in there, and then you were looking for another leg up. And you see, we didn't get anywhere near that. And that tells you something. You know, when we made a double top right here, and notice where this double top formed. It formed right here where we had highs before. And that's what prices do. They continue to, they just probe support and resistance. This is where everything happens at these levels. These are what's important. The stuff in the middle is not so important. It's what happens when you get to these important places. And the overnight high, which is up here, and when I say the overnight, I'm talking about before the regular 8:30 open. The regular 8:30 open was right in here. These two bars right in here. That's where the market opened. So everything before that happened in the overnight session. And I don't trade the overnight session, but I take what happens in that session into account. And you can see how important it is. You can see what happened during the regular session when we tested that overnight high. Prices turned straight down. And if you shorted that, it was a great short down into here. Unfortunately, I exited right in here thinking we were going to bounce, and I was wrong that time. But, you know, it's better to be wrong when you're on the right side of the market than it is to be wrong and be on the wrong side of the market, because then you lose money. You know, you could look at that I lost money because I gave up all those, you know, that extra couple of 3 points down through there. But that's neither here nor there. I still made some good money on the way down right there. And then when I started doing was saying, okay, if we, you know, I'm looking to buy down here. And normally I'd wait on a good bar, a setup, but you know, when you got that good a setup, when you're that far away from the EMA and you hadn't had any correction all the way down, I can just about tell you without hesitating that we're going to bounce down here. Even if we're going to go lower, we're going to bounce first. And I'm going to get some of that bounce just like I just did right there. I made 8 points on that bounce. And now I got a runner in case we go higher. Are we going to go higher? I may get stopped out. I'm one tick from getting stopped out here. So I could get stopped out, and that may be all I'm going to get out of this. But I can see, or I can tell you, I got 8 points out of it. That's how confident I was that we were going to bounce here enough for me to get 4 ticks. Do I get it wrong sometimes? You better do. But that's just, all right, we got stopped out there. So, this trend may continue down. And I probably need to have a trend line on here just in case. That's looking like, that looks like the trend to me right there. So, and you can see we broke on lower right there. So, but I felt really confident we were going to get that bounce right there, and we got it. And we still haven't got back to the EMA. So the market's really weak right now. You got to take that into account, and you got to be aware of that. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you and show you what I'm looking at. And because I get so many questions about why did you buy that low right there? And, and if I'll mark that trade, there's not really a setup there. You see, as you notice, you never really got a good setup right there. Unless you bought it blindly the way I did. And because the idea behind buying it blindly is to get in at the very low of the bounce. And that way you've got room to get your 4 points in there. Like I said, don't go doing this blindly in your live account. If you want to do this, if you want to practice on it or try it, that's great. That's what you need to be doing. But do it on the simulator because I could have been wrong there and lost 10 points easily. And actually, I had my stop at 2 points. I could have lost 20 points right there. I probably would have pulled the trigger and exited earlier than that, but without taking 2 points, because if that would have just kept on going, I probably would have just gone ahead and exited with a point or something. I would have lost 10 points. But instead, I made 8 points. Didn't get anything on the runners. We may get another chance to enter here. Now that we've broken lower, it may turn into a failed break lower. And this is looking pretty good coming out of here. But we've got somewhat of a trend line, and we haven't had any break of it. I mean, that's a really bearish move right there. And but I guarantee you what most people were doing, most non-profitable traders or most traders that aren't making any money, they were looking to sell down here. And they were getting short exactly. This thing keeps going down and down and down, and they're thinking, man, I'm missing this. I got to get on. And suddenly they see this big bearish bar, and they go short right there. And that's where I'm getting long right in there. And that's where all the smart traders that got short all the way down through here are exiting their trades. And that's what happens right there. They know to get out because there's going to be a bounce, and they start taking profits. And a lot of times that thing rockets out of there. Next thing you know, we're headed back to the high side. And we may end up doing that yet. But hopefully that makes sense to you. And again, people will ask me, since we're talking about this, they'll ask me, well, why didn't you buy this one right here? Why did you buy this one? Well, the reason I didn't buy this one right here, well, the main reason was because I was short. And I thought about buying it because I did exit right there. And if I'd have got a setup, I probably would have bought it. But notice there's no setup. We just went right on through it. But that's not the only reason. The main reason is we've already tested this area right across here several times. And notice how this low is a little bit lower than this one. So this low might be a little bit lower than that one. And the main thing, though, is that this is the overnight low. This is the most important one. It's more important than this low, even though you got a double bottom right there, maybe even a triple bottom if you count that right there. This is the most important low and this is the most important high. And now the most important low is going to be this one. But what you'll see that happens out of here, see, we probably should have went long right there. I was busy talking and missed that. That's a nice reversal bar. And you see we're kind of coming out of it. But we still got this trend line down through here to consider. And really what you want to see happen here is you want to see, if you've made a new low, is you want to see it come out and then come back and test that low and hold and then turn back up and use a second entry. That's generally the best way to trade that. If you want to be aggressive, you could have entered there. But you see it's really struggling to get back above that trend line right now, and we may turn down and keep going down. This is looking like a pretty strong move down, and we may continue to go down even further. So you just got to see what's happening. But anyway, I want you to understand why this low is real important and why this one. And you can go back and look at just about any day. Let's go back into yesterday. And this was the overnight low yesterday, and this was the overnight high. And look what happened. We tested that low all these times and finally broke below it right here and then went higher. And then notice we had a little double top here, and we tested that, broke above it, and came back down. So then this is your overnight high. And notice what happened when we got up here. We found resistance. Because of this news item and the fact that the market had a lot of momentum, it got on through there. But notice that was so once you get through there, then you're looking for the next high. And you may even have to go back a few days to find those highs. So just remember that overnight high and low are very, very important. And especially on a range day, if this turns out to be a range day. Now look, notice we came down here, we tested this, and again, and now it's holding. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're 16 minutes into it, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you how I do that, and I really like that setup. I really thought I'd get a couple of runners and we'd ride this to the top, but that's why we do it the way we do it. We get our money, we get out, we take all the risk off the table. Once I scalped out with 4 ticks and moved my stop to break even on the rest of my contracts, there was no risk whatsoever. That was just a free trade. And that's the way I like to do it. I like to have those free trades set up. And you'd be surprised at how many times you'll get a free trade off of an overnight low like that. Not every time, because obviously I didn't that time, but a lot of times, like right up here, this was just a free trade, and your runners are still, you're able to ride them as low. And I exited too soon. Should have held on to them right there. But when we got all that overlap and broke lower, I really thought we'd bounce there. But that shows you the market doesn't always do what we're expecting. It'll do different things, and you got to be prepared for that. So always think ahead. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed that trade example. Hopefully that makes sense to you and just get an idea of, what I'm thinking. And, when your overnight highs and lows are no further apart than that, and, that's one other thing. Let me talk about that. Somebody else asked me today, how do you know when you're in a range? Well, that's pretty obvious when you come in and your EMA is that flat. You're in a trading range. When your overnight high is at 31 and your overnight low is at 24, that's not even 10 points. That's a range. And you can see we're not consistently making higher highs and higher lows or lower highs and lower lows. We got a new high here, new low there, new high there, a new low there compared to that one, a new high here compared to that one. So you're just, you're just flip-flopping around, and you're getting, that's what whipsaws everybody. And you see we're heading out of here. And notice how that low held. But, you got to determine if you're in a range. The first thing you want to do is come in and determine, are we in a range, or are we trending? And, when we turned down off this high, it was obvious this is a trading range. It really, it was obvious we were in a trading range right here because, you couldn't go any lower and you were struggling to go higher. Finally get a little move up and you make a double top and turn down. And again, I was shocked we didn't bounce right there. But if you don't bounce there and you go straight on through, the odds are really strong you're going to bounce down here. And that's why I took that trade. So, and you can see we're trying to go higher here. But I didn't want to risk this going lower and give my money back, so I just moved my stop to break even and took what it gave me. And now we'll see if it rockets out of here and goes back to the other side. And I wish I'd have gotten long in there, but I was busy talking about other things. So anyway, but I'm going to wrap it up. This is getting towards 20 minutes. This will probably serve as our chart lesson for today. So it's really just getting really slow and just, this was some pretty good moves for this early in the morning, to be honest with you. But you'll notice that most of your good movements in the morning, and then the more you get towards the afternoon, there's less and less traders, and things just aren't happening. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.